Tino, one of our lovely UNH school horses.
So the goal of this video is to focus more on the actual lunging of the horse and some exercises to do on the lunge line. If you need a refresher of equipment, line handling, and whip handling, please refer back to the first video for more information on these topics. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about why we lunge horses. There's this very common misconception that we only lunge horses to get the energy out before we ride. But that's not the only reason to lunge. We can lunge for a large host of reasons, including, obviously, to quiet a very enthusiastic horse. We can lunge for training purposes, we can lunge to condition the horse, and we can also lunge to get the horse's mental stress out. So if you have a horse that's maybe very anxious or isn't listening, then you can lunge to help get them focused on you. So I really like lunging as a physical fitness and conditioning tool because it lets me condition them and work on improving their physical fitness, top line, and overall muscling without ever having to sit on their back. That is really, really nice because it gives me a tool to improve the horse while I'm able to assess their way of going from the ground. I really like this for horses that have been out of work for a while, although I would caution that there is such a thing as too much lunging, and with a horse that's not in the greatest physical condition, I would maybe keep a lunge session to no more than 10 to 15 minutes. With a more physically fit horse, I really wouldn't do more than 20 to 30 minutes. And with young horses who are still growing and developing bones, I am very wary of lunging because you can put too much stress on their joints and developing bones, tendons, and ligaments and cause permanent damage. So with anything under the age of 6, I'm really quite cautious to lunge in very short stints, being very, very mindful to keep the circle quite large and give them plenty of room to move so as to avoid putting stress on their joints. So when I lunge, I like to go ahead and let the horse warm up without the side reins on in both directions for a couple minutes. And I do this for a few reasons. One is I feel it's only fair to give them a chance to get their body moving before I ask them to do anything more challenging. And another is particularly with a new horse, it gives me a chance to briefly assess just how they go and what their natural way of going is. So here you can see I have Tino and he's tracking left, and I will go ahead and warm him up the other direction as well, although I have not included that clip here for your viewing pleasure. Now that Tino has had an opportunity to warm up, I have gone ahead and attached the side reins. You will notice his head is at or in front of the vertical at all times. I've made these side reins fairly short because Tino is a very experienced horse and is quite athletic. I would not make them this short for a younger or less experienced animal. It wouldn't be fair to them, and it quite frankly would perhaps restrict their movement too much. When using side reins, it's important that most of your work be in the trot and the canter, due to the way the horse carries himself. You should never lead your horse in side reins. It's not fair to them, and it can encourage them to actually come behind the bit and shorten their neck too much, which is something that we find very undesirable. It's also a difficult habit to break once they get into that habit. In case you hadn't already noticed, Tino is feeling a little sassy today and has some of his favorite little evasions, which for him, he's a very unique creature and a very clever creature actually. One of his favorite evasions, when asked to do something that he perceives as hard, is simply to offer something else as an exchange. So if you notice those little moments where he was breaking to the canter instead of continuing to trot and getting a little frisky a second ago, that's because I'm asking him for a longer stride, and he thinks a long stride is hard. So he's offering me the canter instead in the hopes that I might possibly be willing to allow him to canter and do something easier. So to deal with that some, I've been asking Tino to do things that make him have to think. So I did a couple walk-trot transitions, now some trot-canter transitions. This gets him focusing on me and the fact that I'm asking him for something, rather than on being goofy and trying to avoid working. So one exercise I really like to increase lateral suppleness is spiraling in and out. And the idea here is to ask the horse to come into a smaller circle, no smaller than 10 meters or so in the trot, or 15 meters or so in the canter, and maintain that straightness on the circle. So the idea is that they won't stick their hind end out to the side or bring it in, and they'll still have that correct alignment, but they have to bend more through their rib cage in order to flex. And you can see Tino is doing that, a little bit of that here. It's really nice for horses that are laterally stiff, and I really like it for him because I know he's very capable of doing this, but it challenges him and it keeps his brain busy, which is a very beneficial thing. Another great exercise is transitions. I love this for a horse that is mentally tense, or a horse that's blowing me off a little bit and isn't really paying attention to me. And this can be walk-trot transitions, trot-canter transitions. You could do transitions within the gait, but the idea is to go a little bit and come back. You shouldn't be going to, say, the canter and staying there forever. You should be cantering maybe a quarter of a circle and then trotting. And you can see I've been doing a little bit of that with Tino here. And like I said, the idea is to get his attention on me, get him focusing on me. Another really great exercise when lunging is parallel lunging. And the handler actually moves with the horse as I am here, and then lets them pivot around them at the end of the circle, and then comes with them again on the next side, long side, if you will, of the circle. This is nice for younger horses sometimes, because you can stay a little closer and have a little more control. With Tino, the idea here was I was hoping to get him to extend his trot a little bit, which he really was not willing to offer me. So instead he offered, well, quite frankly, to canter and play a little bit and be a bit of a goof. And to which I responded, okay, fine, you want to work harder? Here, let's canter a little bit. So I'm going to return to that spiraling down and in exercise, once again to help increase lateral suppleness and flexibility. And if you watch Tino here, you can actually see that he starts to slow as I make the circle smaller. This is once again a little bit of an evasion because the work's getting harder. So see there how his pace changed? So he's trying to make his pace slower to make it easier for him, and you want to just encourage him to go on and keep a consistent pace. And I'm going to hold him on that smaller circle for just a minute, and then he goes back out again. So I'm now going to go ahead and change direction, because when you lunge, it is important to lunge your horse equally in both directions. It avoids overstressing one side and also encourages even muscle development, which is part of what we're looking for in lunging. So I'm working on some pretty similar concepts tracking right. I'm going to work on some transitions, some spiraling in and out, and asking him to extend a little bit. My thought process here is very similar as it was the other direction, getting him mentally focused on me, trying to improve him and improve his lateral flexibility. Working in the side reins is obviously encouraging him to reach through his top line and building correct muscling, which is very desirable in our horses. And also just giving him a chance to move some and work his way through things. With horses that spend quite a bit of time stabled or in smaller turnouts, I like to be really mindful of the fact that they're probably coming into any kind of exercise a little bit stiff. For this reason, I'm a little bit more forgiving at the start of our lunge set of mistakes or stiffness or breaking to the canter when I ask for a bigger trot. But I expect more from him the more time he has to warm up and become more supple. So if you watch closely here, you'll notice that as Tino comes around and goes away, he's sticking his butt out toward the side a little bit. And that is one of his favorite evasions. He does not like to be straight because then he has to use himself and work harder. So rather than doing that, whenever he gets an opportunity, he likes to just go out a little bit and disengage essentially. So here I'm looking for Tino to take long strides rather than these nice up and down strides. And when asked for that, he instead breaks to the canter, hoping I will accept his offer of an easier solution for him. But I don't want canter, I want long trot strides, so I'm going to just bring him back, and as he comes down one of these longer sides of our circle, once again try and parallel lunge and ask him for a little bit of a bigger stride, and he breaks to the canter, so we correct. Sometimes horses are a little bit sticky about this, and it's not intentional, it's just he's offering something that's an easier thing for him to do. So the correction is simply to just bring them back and ask again. Going forwards is never a bad instinct. We don't want to punish the horse for that, but we just want to correct and make sure they understand what we are asking of them. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you have enjoyed it and learned something as well.